Hello everyone, welcome back to Crafts by the Bow. Today I'm going to do a little bit of heat embossing, and I've already made 2 cards, and that's why my fingers are quite green and blue. But I want to show you just how to do heat embossing with a larger stamp. Lots of people know that you can use sentiments and emboss those, and maybe use a gold embossing powder or a white. But not always do people use a big stamp and then colour behind it. So the stamp I'm using is this Butterfly Brilliance, and this is one big stamp. There are a few large stamps in the catalogue. I know there's the Roses one and there's the Daisy Garden one, but I'm going to use this one because I think this one is quite versatile. So I've already put it on one of my big blocks. If you don't have a big block, you can actually, in a pinch, put it on the back. Let's just show you. Put it on the back of the stamp case and stamp with it like that. It will flex a little bit more. You just need to be careful that you've got all of the Versamark or the ink that you're using. You must make sure you've got all of that on the paper. But honestly, when I've been away camping or I just haven't had the big block to hand, I've often used one of those stamp cases. Okay, so I've got it on here already. And to heat emboss, you need to use a slow drying ink. And Versamark is one of those inks. You've seen me use this before, where we can use it as a tone-on-tone stamp. So that if, let's find a little piece of card. If you're using it as tone on tone, oh, I haven't just got a stamp set. Oh, I'll stamp a little bit of this. You can use this sticky Versamark and stamp up just a little bit, and then you can use it as an ink. And can you see, as it dries, it looks like you've stamped with a coloured ink, like a tone on tone ink. That's not quite what we're going to use it for today. When it's a big stamp like this, I like to take the ink pad or the Versamark to the stamp set. And that way I can see that I'm getting ink on all of it. Now Versamark dries slowly, so it's perfect for heat embossing. Whoops, I'm just going to put a little piece of paper down. And I've got a piece of basic white card that I'm going to stamp on. If you've got an embossing buddy, this is like a little cotton bag of cornstarch, you can just rub gently over your paper, and that will get rid of any little bits of fluff or dust or sort of ink from your hands, or oil even from your hands. So if you haven't got one, don't worry, just be careful when you stamp, that you don't put your fingers over everything. Okay, and I'm just going to put this on here. I've already cut my card to the size that I need for the front of my card, so it's a bit smaller than the stamp itself. The thing about Versamark is as well, can you see how that sticks? So if you're not quite sure if you've got all the ink everywhere, I just rub over with my finger, make sure it's on there. And I'm going to do 2 pieces. So I'm going to put that one on one side. You might be able just to see, that's an image on there. It's tricky to see the Versamark, but it is on there. Okay, I'm going to stamp this up again. And if you feel like your Versamark is getting a bit dry, don't forget that you can buy a refill ink for it. And it's like a very sticky, gloopy, gluey kind of ink. It takes a little bit longer to rub into the ink pad itself, but you can refill. Okay. So I'm just going to do exactly the same. I'm going to pop that down. I'm not too worried if it's exactly square or straight, because the butterflies themselves don't look square or straight. Okay, and then I'm just going to rub it again. And take that one off. Okay, so that's all we need to do with the inking. Next, I'm going to put the embossing powder on. And I keep my embossing powder in these little boxes, just because it's easier. I find it's just easier to use. So I'm going to put this in the bottom of my little tray. If you don't have a little tray, just use a piece of paper, fold it in half, and collect all the embossing powder on it, and then scoop it back into your little packet or your box. And I'm just going to sprinkle this over all of it. And you don't have to worry because your ink isn't going to be dry. It takes it takes a little while to make this dry. I'm just going to make sure I've got some on all of it. And then I'm just going to knock some of the powder off so I know where to pick it up. I don't want to touch where the powder is already stuck onto the ink, because then it wouldn't emboss. Just knock a little bit of spare off. Okay, and you can use a brush, like, I'm not sure the camera will pick it up. There's a little bit extra there, I don't want it. So I'm just going to brush that bit off. Okay, and that piece is ready. But I'm just going to pop this back in my box. Okay, and let's pop it over that side. Actually, I'm going to put it on the floor because then I know that I can't get the heat emboss gun on it. And the other one I'm going to do with black. So it's exactly the same process. I'm just going to find my card, try not to pick it up at the edges, pop it in there. I'm going to spread my embossing powder over the top. And don't worry if you haven't got one of these trays. You know, you can just do it on a piece of paper and just keep moving your paper around, popping your embossing folder back in your box, and then doing it again. Just so you get everything covered. I'm going to knock a little bit off until I can see where to hold it. If you don't feel comfortable holding it with your hands, you can always use a pair of tweezers. Pick it up with your tweezers. Tap as much off as you can, and then tap it on the back as well. That gets some extra off, and you can see a bit more on here, you know, where I've got little pieces that are stuck, and I don't want those pieces. Let's just turn this round. Not sure about this piece here, so not sure I've got all of the embossing powder on there, so I'm just going to put it back on again. Oh, I did have. Just happened to be a flatter piece of wing. There we go. Okay, so I'm popping that on one side, and I'm just going to move this right out of the way. Now, I'm also just going to get rid of this powder. I'm not the cleanest person when it comes to embossing. I end up with little bits of powder everywhere. I don't know if other people do, but I certainly do. Okay, so I've got my heat gun, and the Stampin' Up one, this is the old Stampin' Up one. The new one, I think it has 2 heat settings, so you can have it just a little bit cooler if you want as well. But this one, it only has the 1 setting, and it works fine, but they're noisy. Now, I'm just going to take this again. I can see a little bit of black there. I don't know if it's a mark on the paper because it's not rubbing off. But that's okay, because it will cover over in a few minutes. Okay, now find somewhere where you can hold it. If you can't, use your tweezers. I like to start mine off flat on my table. And I do apologise for the noise because it is just a bit noisy. So what I'm going to do is wait till it heats up just a tiny bit, and then I'm going to sort of move the heat gun round. Don't keep it in one place or the paper will scorch. Just move it round slowly. And as the embossing powder starts to heat up and melt, that's when it sets, and you can see that it changes colour. Here it's like a dusty kind of grey, but once you've heated it, it goes like a shiny black. So I'm just going to go round and round for a little bit over the whole of the paper, just until my heat gun warms up enough. Okay. And then go round. Now I'm just going to stop so that you can see. You see how this side is powdery, but this side has gone shiny. And when you touch it, there's nothing, no powder residue that comes off on your finger. So that's when you know that that piece is ready. And you just go over the whole of your picture like that. If you find that your card is starting to buckle, a good thing to do is just to turn it over and heat the back a little bit as well. Okay, now I'm just going to check to see if it looks like all of that has set. I can't see any that isn't shiny, but just occasionally there might be a little piece. I'm not quite sure about this corner. I'm just going to do a little bit more in this corner. Can you see how it's all shiny now? I don't see any that isn't shiny. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same with the white piece. Now the white is a little bit harder to see, but I find that it actually sets quicker. And you can see as soon as the white's going, it goes from that powdery just to a tiny bit shiny, but a little bit more solid looking. Okay, so there's the first butterfly done. You can see it's just a little bit more solid looking. It's a little bit shiny, but it's not, you can't tell as quickly that it's ready, but it does seem to set a bit faster. Okay, so I'm just going to turn it round. Just keep making sure that the end of your heat gun isn't too near the paper. I keep mine about 1.5 inches off. I hope you fast forwarded through all that noise. I do apologise, but it is quite a noisy process. Now, I've got both of them. They're still a little bit warm, so I'm just going to leave them down to dry. I'm just double checking this one. Can't feel any that's... Oh, maybe just that little wing there isn't quite set. I don't think it was quite set. and you can see that I've rubbed a tiny bit off. But all you do, if you rub a tiny bit off, get one of your Stampin' Right markers. I'm just going to go over it. And because it's black, it's not going to show up. So if you haven't, you know, got it quite all set and you rub it with your finger, don't worry. There we go. Can just be a little bit difficult to see sometimes. Okay, so I'm just going to pop that there. And then I'm going to show you how I coloured them in. And I did each one with different colours. Let's start with the black one, and I'll do a little piece on the black. Now, for the black, I chose Granny Apple Green, Pacific Point, and Coastal Cabana. And let's put it on here. I'm just going to put it on a little piece of extra paper. And I like to use the old stamping sponges. Now, if you don't have any of these left over, and I know now that they're retired, you could use your sponge daubers. Just the little sponge daubers, dip them in the ink and go swirly whirly round. I find this takes a little bit longer because it's a smaller area. Or what you could also use as well are the new blending brushes. But I know these have been on back order for a while, and I've only got the 3. And I like to have one sponge for each colour or one brush for each colour. So I'm not going to be using these until I've got more of them. So I'm back to using my little sponges, and you can see each one has a little circle of the right colour card on and the name. So I just use one for each colour, and that way I don't get them mixed up. I'm going to start with the Granny Apple Green and my sponge. I'm just going to pop that little pen back out of the way. So all you do is just dab on your ink and just lightly colour in some of the areas. You don't have to do a pattern. I start with sort of the lightest colour. Like this. Okay, and then I'm going to open my Pacific Point next. I'm going to leave the green open because I might use some more of it. So with the Pacific Point, again, now this one is quite juicy because I've only just filled it up, so I'm going to try not to rub too hard. I don't want it too saturated. Okay, and then my Coastal Cabana. It's really easy to colour these in like this. You can cover, you know, quite a large area quite quickly. And then the Coastal Cabana. And I like how you go over the colours. And so some are more saturated than others. You get different variations. Okay, let's pop a bit more of this down here. And then if you think, I needed a bit more of the Granny Apple Green, or I haven't got quite enough blue, just go back, get your ink, put more in the little areas where you think you needed a bit more. And I like this blue, so I'm just going to put some more over. I like to make sure as well that the edges of the card are coloured, because I think that always looks better when it's on the front of your card then. And you know, it looks sort of a bit more finished. Okay, so that's that one all coloured. And I'm just going to leave it for a moment. We haven't quite finished with it yet. I'm just going to pop it on one side, and I'm going to take our white one. And I've got different colours for this, so different sponges. I've got Calypso Coral, Daffodil Delight, let's move over a little bit so you can see, Pumpkin Pie, and Mango Melody. And I'm going to start with my lighter one, which is the Daffodil Delight. That's fine, that is the right one. And again, I'm just going to do a little tiny bit. I might not even use the Mango Melody. I might just use the Daffodil Delight. Let's see. I'm on the Pumpkin Pie. Let's find the sponge for the pumpkin pie. Here we go. And you don't have to be, you know, too careful with doing your sponging. It's not like sometimes when you sponge a picture, you don't want there to be different variations in the colour, because on this you really do. You want lots of different colours and for them all to mingle into each other. And the Calypso Coral. Where's my sponge? Oh, there it is. I really like when you use the white embossing. I just like the sort of the more subtle colour that it gives. And I use it mostly for doing sentiments. If I'm heat embossing a sentiment, say I'm doing like a white ink, like a white craft ink on top of black card, I think the white looks really nice on there, and I think it gives a great effect. Yeah, I'm just going to brighten this up a little bit. That's why I got the Mango Melody out, just in case the Daffodil Delight wasn't bright enough, but actually it is. And I'm going to put a little bit more of the pumpkin pie on as well. Oh, that's better. That's a bit brighter. And where I've got the Calypso Coral, I'm just going to go over it again. See how every time you go over it, you get sort of a different effect? And it's one of those things where you can just keep adding and adding until you're happy with it. I think the purples and pinks would look great on this. Like the Highland Heather and the Gorgeous Grape. Maybe with the new polished pink. I think that would look super. Okay, so I'm just going to close these down. Now, remember I said that it wasn't quite finished. Once you've coloured over something that you've embossed, you need to almost polish it. I use like this, like a little piece of microfiber cloth, but you could use a piece of paper towel or little piece of cotton cloth, or even a Kleenex. And you just go over, because this will take off the ink from on top of the black embossing. Oh, look, that wasn't quite dry. So I can feel it with my cloth as well. So I'm going to get that black pen again. Where did I put it? Oh, I don't want the thick end. Okay, so I'm going to pop these in. We'll use the little dark piece in. Now this won't be as shiny, but that's okay. And then you can always go over it a bit more with a bit more of the ink. Okay. Now white, you can always tell if you've polished that, because although you think it looks quite white now, when you polish, it does go much whiter. And I'll show you in a second. Let me just take the ink off all of them, and then let's get the yellow back. So if I go back over, can you see how now you can see the white, but where I've gone over with the yellow, you can tell that it isn't quite as white. So then you rub over and it goes back to being white. Okay, so that's all of the embossing and the colouring done. For my cards, all I did was I took a base colour. I used the Calypso Coral from here and the Early Espresso Brown, because I think that goes really nice with the oranges. And I've added some of the Gilded Gems, and then these are my layering circles. There is a very, very tiny scalloped circle underneath, and this is the faux suede Early Espresso ribbon. Now this one that we made, look how much brighter it is. So I'm going to go over and just put a bit more in. Let me find that mango melody. Well, I'll do that at the end when you've gone. Okay, and then here's my one that I did with the blues and the greens. And again, I used my layering circles. I used, oh, what are those ones called? Oh, let me look in my box. I can't remember. They're from that textured suite. Let's have a little look. Is it something like elegant gems? I forget the names. Elegant faceted gems, these ones. And just the clear ones. Okay. Now what I also did was I stamped the whole stamp on a piece of Whisper White. And so let's see how they fit back in. And again, I embossed it and I just coloured it in the same way that we did the main card. But I didn't go over the whole of the card because I'm not really using these little inner pieces. And then I put the big die over all of them so that it cut them all out. And now I'm going to be able to use these on cards. And what I can do is just fold them, maybe put a little glue dot on and have them as a 3D kind of thing. Let's see. So if I hadn't put that there, you know, I could put this on here and have it as 3D, or I could use them just on greetings. I could use the little ones, you know, set it at the side of here and not even have this background, just on an ordinary piece of designer series paper. So that's one little way to use heat embossing. There are lots of different things to do, lots of different techniques, lots of different ways to colour them. You know, you don't have to use this kind of ink. You could colour them still with your blender pens or your Stampin' Right markers, or even those chalk pastels that are just out. If you do use the chalk pastels, don't forget that they need to be set. So spray them with something like a hairspray and then they won't smudge. But there we are. I hope you enjoyed that and I hope you'll give the embossing a go. Let's pop those over there so you can see. And I'll see you all again really soon. Thanks so much for joining me, everybody. Have a wonderful crafty day and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.